Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the This Is Me podcast. I'm Karen.
And I'm Ellie, and today we have Dorothy joining us. Dorothy is the founder of Brilliant People Consulting, her coaching and leadership development business, and Fabulous Forever, her wellbeing and yoga business. Dorothy is currently figuring out what it looks like for a woman who could technically retire, but feels way too young and inspired for that. So Dorothy, thank you so much for joining us and taking the time out of your day to talk to us. Why don't you, to get us started, tell us a bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Okay, well, thank you very much for the invitation to come onto your podcast. It's very exciting. Where to start? So, where am I today? I am a 66-year-old lady. I'm married to Alan. I've got no children. I've got a gorgeous cockapoo called Millie, who I adore. I waited 30 odd years to get her. I'm still doing a little consulting. I've had my consulting business, Brilliant People, since 2010. Not doing too much work, but I just do what lands in my lap. So usually leadership development workshops, team development workshops, coaching. With Fabulous Forever, I teach a weekly yoga class. I do one-to-one yoga, chair yoga. I also have an online coaching group where I help people with healthy habits based on Ayurveda. So when I did my training as a yoga teacher, that took me to Ayurveda. I absolutely love doing that. And more recently, just as recently as September, I decided to train to be an independent Thermomix advisor, which I'm absolutely loving. I'm committing to getting out on the socials every day, so that's putting me under some pressure. But that's where I am today. I definitely am too young to retire. I don't want to be retired. I want to be inspired, and I want to inspire others. So I have a very nice life today. And where did it all start? So I'm an only child. I was born in Edinburgh. My parents, my mum was Danish and my dad was Scottish. It was very deliberate that I was born in Edinburgh. That was planned. I went to 7 schools. I was always the new girl. My dad was always moving around. I always used to give my parents grief every time we moved. But actually, when I look back now, what I think it's done is given me some pretty good social skills in terms of being willing to go first, not waiting for people to involve me, but, pushing my way into friendship groups and that kind of thing. So I do think that was probably good. I had to be the one to make the effort. And it's also made me, I think, really adaptable to change. And actually, what I've learned now is I really need change. I live with a man who doesn't like change. He doesn't like moving house. I love moving house, but I've been in my current house since 1998.
Wow.
Yeah, and I really wanted to move house a few years ago, and Alan really didn't. And the solution was to change the house. So we did have an extension put on. So I got a new house, but that wasn't the point. I really wanted to be in a different place because I think every time you move, it's like an adventure. So yeah. As a kid, I always wanted to be a teacher, right up until making my A-level selection choices. And at the time, it was predicted that there was going to be a demographic time bomb and there would be a glut of teachers. So I was advised to do something different. I went to a very old-fashioned school, high school for young ladies. And the basic advice to me was I should be a journalist. I liked English. I was pretty good at
Oh,
English.
really?
Yeah, to be a journalist. But we were living in Southport at the time, and I'd got a job as a glass washer at the local Pontins holiday camp. And because I loved cooking and I loved domestic science, I somehow had
That's what it used to be called, domestic science as home economics or whatever.
It's probably not called that now either, is
No, it
it?
won't be. No.
called. But because I loved that, I decided at a very young age that if you did a job where you were focusing on your hobbies, it would never feel like work. Where did I get that wisdom from? So I decided I wanted to do hotel management. So that's what I did after my A-levels. After that, I did that at a hotel school in Birmingham College of Food and Domestic Arts. And after that, I went on a graduate training scheme in a hotel business in London, 15 hotels in London, one in Denmark and one in Mauritius.
Ooh.
And I moved into a flat. So every year, the owner of the hotel company took on 12 graduates. I was one of 12. He had property around London. I was sharing a bedroom for the first time in my life with my first job. We had a flat on the Bayswater Road. Imagine this, Bayswater Road, opposite Hyde Park, and about a 2-minute walk from Queensway Tube. And I absolutely loved living in London. So I did my rotations all around the hotels. The plan was that I would, become a shadow manager, a duty manager, and then work in one of the hotels in London. But I'd worked in the personnel department, as it was called at the time. And the lady that looked after the graduates and other bits and pieces, she went to work somebody else. So I came off the grad factory line and I was offered her job as my permanent position. So that was my sort of foray into the world of people, the world of personnel.
That's what happened to me, Dot. And I wonder, looking back, because I did a similar thing with Asda, whether you were offered that personnel role because you were a female. Like, I often wonder, was I offered that job in that store because I was the woman? Do you know, like, I don't know the answer to it, but back in the day, it was a real woman's job, wasn't it? You know, you had to.
Probably. I don't know why I was offered it actually, but thinking about it, it was on the grad scheme we were a mix of male and female, but mostly women, I think. So I have no idea.
No, it's just it's just something I just puzzle about. Because on our graduate scheme, Nikki and I were the only ones that were offered personnel manager jobs.
You were on the fast track graduate.
Yeah.
I would never forget that. Yeah. I remember the personnel director at the time telling me that I would never be a trainer because I have my voice is too monotone. So you'll never be a trainer. And I carried that with me forever. But, guess what? I did become a trainer. So stick that up your wear it.
Yeah, and I also don't think you've got a monotone voice. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on there.
No idea. But I had moved from Birmingham down to London to do this grad scheme. And I had a boyfriend there. And the plan was I was only going to go for a year, but I was absolutely loving it. And I was there for 18 months. And he basically said, if you don't come back soon, you can forget it. So I got myself the first job I could, which was in personnel, and it was with Asda. Got me to the right geographical location. My dad wasn't very happy. But anyway, I loved Asda from the minute I walked through the door. There was just something about it. I trained in a store in Aston Villa. And the boyfriend that put me under pressure to move back to Birmingham became my husband. So that was Alan.
Was that Alan? Did he?
Yeah, that was Alan.
I'll be having a word with Alan later.
Get up here or else.
Yeah, that was probably quite a good move. So I loved that first job. My first job was a store personnel manager in the Asda store in Brierley Hill in the Midlands, in the Black Country. And I'd just turned 22. There were 500 odd colleagues in that store and it was a 98% unionised. There was a big steelworks in Brierley Hill at the time. And if I was to be offered that job again tomorrow, I would be a little bit terrified. But at the time, when you're 20, 21, 22, you're just fearless, really, aren't you, about what you're prepared to take on. Yeah. But I loved that job. So I did 3 different stores, a new store opening. Then I was offered a regional personnel manager role. That was involved a move down into Essex. I hated that job for the first 9 months. I felt completely out of my depth. The difference between single site working and, multi-site working. I used to try and find books to read about it to get better at it because I knew I was struggling. And then one of my old bosses offered me the chance to go back to to work for him again and open a new store. And that was when you kind of realise you can't go back. You've got to, and that was a turning point. So being offered the chance to go back taught me that actually you can't. And I did that role, different regions, different operations directors. If I look back now, even though it was a dodgy start, I actually think of all the roles I had, that was the one that I excelled at. Looking back, that was the one that I performed probably the best. That then led to a foray into Asda's head office. It was a clean sheet of paper. There was a demand for development in the head office. There was a training team there that did a cracking job.
Thank you very much.
I was amazed at what that team was pumping out to us in the stores. And I wanted to know how you were doing it. And for the
Just
first
sheer
time,
brilliance.
sheer brilliant. Well, for the first time, I asked for what I wanted, or I let it be known that I would like
Yeah.
to work in that department. Whereas I was kind of brought up to believe that you didn't apply for things, you were given them. If you were good enough, somebody would
Right.
notice it, quite different to today. But yeah, so I moved into Asda House. My job was to create a training strategy for the head office, which didn't exist before. So that was fun. And learnt loads in that job. Worked for a brilliant boss, didn't we, Karen?
Yeah. I'm just wondering how you got Alan to move.
Well, how I got Alan to move was each move we made, he never wanted to move. But each time we made a move, he didn't want to leave the place we were in.
Right.
Go figure that. We had to have a squash club. There had to be a squash club near where we moved to. So that was the main criteria, because that was how he created his friendship groups
Yeah.
when we moved. Yeah. So did that job for a couple of years. Was then head of people for Asda House. Loved that as well. We were acquired by Walmart, and I had a hankering to be an expat. I wanted to work internationally. Had a project in Japan for a few weeks, which was a training It was to bring job ladders to Japan, Karen. How about
Yeah.
that?
It's a good gig, that.
And I also had a gig in Russia. So we were a project team on the ground in Moscow for 3 months.
Wow.
That didn't really come to anything at the time. And then I was offered a job with Walmart's global sourcing division, and I was the people director for Europe, Middle East and Africa, and then latterly for the Western Hemisphere. So I had offices, little offices, very small headcount, from Pakistan across to Chile. So did a lot of international travel. We also came and worked with you, Karen, at
You
George,
did,
in
yeah.
setting up that office. And then I can't remember what happened next, but my next job was to be the people director for Walmart's market entry into Russia. So Russia came back around in around 2007, I think it was 2008. So I was offered that job. The first year was designed to be UK based, and then after that to actually go and live in Moscow for an expat assignment. Alan said he would go. He didn't really want to. I kind of knew he didn't. I thought it would be an adventure. Even if it was awful, as long as we were together, it would be fine and it would not be lasting forever. Moscow wouldn't have been my first choice really, but it's super, super interesting to work there. And on the side, I was being headhunted by by the chief executive at Shop Direct Group, now the Very Group. And Alan was always more interested in talking to me about, they've been in touch again. I've told them no. Or why have you told them no? To cut a long story short, I kind of knew he didn't really want to go to Moscow. So I thought,
It's a big clue.
yeah.
Dorothy, when did you go to Australia? Was that after Shop Direct?
After that, yes.
Yeah, okay,
yes.
right. So I didn't want to miss the Australia trip out
Yeah,
now.
no. So I went to work at Shop Direct Group. That's a company that's based in Speke. So during the week, I was living in a flat in where was it now? Stockton Heath, just outside
Yeah,
of
because
Warrington.
that was like Sue Swanee lived there. Sorry, Ellie, this is...
Right.
yeah,
There were people that we both knew, didn't we? So
yeah.
I was there for 18 months. The first 6 months, I absolutely loved it. I was putting all the sort of Asda stuff in around engagement. We had colleague circles in Asda. I took them to Shop Direct Group. We called them people forums. Had a big launch, 200 people in a room with site managers, colleagues, and gave them the job of driving engagement, which hadn't been done before. All the Asda stuff that we know really works. And did some really good stuff there. Really enjoyed the first 6 months. Didn't really enjoy the second 6 months. Decided I wasn't going to stay, but wasn't going to go. I was going to wait till I got a brown envelope. I got a brown envelope. We needed to lose headcount from the people function. So I knew that if I bided my time, that would probably be an option, and it was. So on the day that I found out that I didn't have a job there, even though it was what I really wanted, I cried. I remember ringing
Did
Alan
you?
and right, yeah, I cried on the phone because it was like I'd never not had a job before, and
Yeah.
here I was unemployed. Um, but it was all handled very nicely, at Shop Direct Group. It really, really was. So I decided that I was going to go home, be a housewife for 3 months because I'd done a lot of international travel. I'd lived in Rugby, I'd lived in Stockton Heath, whilst I worked for Shop Direct Group. So I was just going to go home and be a housewife and just decide what next. I'd had a little confidence knock that I'd taken a job that really was not going to prove to be
Yeah.
the right job, and I was scared I was going
Yeah.
to do that again. Anyway, I was out of work for 5 days, and I got an email from somebody in Australia saying, "Would you come here and help us kickstart a leadership program? It's an 8-week project." So I said yes. And I had to set up a company in order to charge them for my services. So that was where Brilliant People came. I just set up this company and flew off to Melbourne. I was there 10 days after receiving that email. I was physically in Melbourne. And that was a former Walmart
That's
colleague
mad.
who'd suggested that I might be, somebody that could help. The MD of the supermarket company in Australia was a former Walmart person. And we'd done a leadership program at ASDA that had been very impactful for him, and he wanted to bring that to the company in Australia. So
Wow.
the 8 weeks came and went. Alan came over at the end for a holiday. They asked me to come back for another 4 weeks. And then you had to leave. You were on a 90-day visa, so I had to leave and come back. But I went back for another 3 months. In fact, I was there for a year altogether.
Wow.
Helping the rollout of this leadership program to, I think it was the top 450 that we did. So that was really fun.
Can I ask
So
you a question? What was that like to have gone immediately without any real, I don't mean choice and like, but like it's not like you decided that you were going to set up your own business and that's what you wanted to do. What was that like to go from this full-time employment situation to suddenly within 10 days or 15 total, or however long it was, to, by the way, now you've got your own business and now you need to work out what you're doing. What was that like?
honestly, Ellie, it was proper exciting. I could not believe my luck. Honestly, I used
Yeah.
to lie in bed in Australia and imagine where I was. And I'd got one of those mouse mats. I'd bought it from an Aussie souvenir shop, one of those mouse mats where it's got a map of Australia and then the map of Europe inside. So like this country is like so massive, and here I am,
Yeah.
little Melbourne. And I loved Australia. I loved the company. It was like revisiting where ASDA had been sort of years ago. They were on the journey of making the link between leadership behaviour, culture, and what the customer receives at the end, which was, kind of the journey that we'd all gone on, during the sort of heyday of ASDA, where people and culture had been a big, big focus. So they were just starting that journey. So I loved the work. I loved the team I was with. I think the other thing probably that helped was when you start something and you know it's only going to be for 8 weeks,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, you're not committed forever.
you're not
Yeah.
forever. So I didn't know that it was going to turn out to be a year. Um, but at the time I was there, whenever I came home, what was really interesting, because it was not long after the global financial crisis, and when I used to come home for a break, it would be gloom, doom, despondency on the news here. But you'd go back to Australia, and it wasn't even mentioned. And I had this theory that if countries were people, the United Kingdom was in retirement and Australia was a teenager, because it was just youthful and
Yeah.
fun, and I just loved Australia. Yeah, I really, really did. In fact, they offered me a job after my second sort of 90-day business visa trip. They offered me a job because it was going to be cheaper for them to employ
Yeah.
me rather than to do it on a consultancy basis. Um, And Alan didn't want to go.
I remember
I
Dorothy
knew you
ringing
were
me
going to
up.
say that.
I remember it really clearly because you were, I'm sure you're going to talk about, you were having struggles with arthritis, weren't you? And I remember Dot ringing me up saying, he won't go. Like, he won't go. Alan won't go. Like, and
Yeah, no,
he
he didn't
didn't
want
go.
to go. And I'd got myself, I'd done 3 90-day trips. So I'd spent 9 months in Melbourne out of a year. And I was due to go back in the January on another 90-day trip. And I was I was furious. I was
I remember
Yeah,
you
I
ringing me. Yeah,
bet.
you were really
I
cross.
couldn't speak about it. I didn't talk to him about it. I didn't speak to him about what I really thought. I hope he doesn't watch this podcast.
Well, if you need us to cut it out, Dorothy, we will.
I think the thought process I went through was, if I go back to Australia, I'm actually saying I don't want to be with you anymore. And I knew that
Yeah.
that was not how I felt, even though I was angry. So it was hard and I suppressed it. And I actually believe that suppressing that was what made me ill later, or I had that theory at the
Yeah,
time.
no,
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I'm
kind of
agreed.
decided not to go back to Australia in the January, even though I really wanted to be there and I was fuming. But another Walmart colleague who I'd not seen for 10 years, her name was Vicky, she was on mat leave and she'd been asked to do a proposal for a leadership development program for somebody that she was coaching. And she felt it wasn't really her bag. She heard I was back from Australia and she invited me to help her with it. She said, we're probably not going to get the work. The MD had got his eye on a different learning and development provider. Anyway, we did the proposal together. We made the pitch. We were part of the beauty parade and we got the work. So that then started off a partnership with Vicky. We worked together for probably the best part of 10 years.
That's
We
mental, that.
didn't form a legal partnership or anything, but everything we did, the clients got us as a double act. And if they didn't want us as a double act, they didn't get us, basically. And I loved working with Vicky. We've got a similar work ethic, we've got similar values. We both loved what we were doing. And if I reflect back on that, that time, what our sort of USP was, it was either a new CEO, new HR director, new strategy. We need to change the culture in order to land the strategy. Therefore, we need a leadership development program to help us change the culture. So we got so many gigs that was the sort of brief. And we were so lucky that all of our work just came from our network. It was either people that Vicky and I both knew, or people that Vicky knew, or people that I knew. So we had some fantastic projects, that we were privileged to actually work on. So that's brilliant people. Around the time that I was turning 60, I was kind of wondering, your friends are retiring, you're thinking, gee, should you retire? And I had this illness, as Karen mentioned. In fact, I was ill when you were ill, Karen.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah. We were a right delight, weren't we?
remember? And at the time, I swear to God, I was 4 stone heavier than I am today. I was very overweight, and in the year that I didn't feel right, I had a year where I just knew there was something wrong, and I was in and out of the doctors more times that year than I had been in the previous 10. Just niggles, and they couldn't find anything. And I was desperately trying to lose weight. I've always been the sort of person that was, on some sort of a diet.
Yeah.
And I was about 2 stone heavier than I wanted to be. And I did a diet. It was in 2011, the last time I did a diet. And in that year, when I was trying to lose weight, I gained another 2 stone. So I was 4 stone overweight. And I now know that what my body was just riddled with inflammation. And the consultant, when I got a diagnosis of arthritis, told me that the body lays down fat to store the inflammation to protect your organs. So
Oh, right.
actually you should be grateful to your body for laying down that fat so that the inflammation doesn't, get into worse places. So I healed myself through juicing, actually. I won a juicing holiday, bizarrely, and that was a game changer. So that kind of took me on a trajectory of more juicing, more raw food. I was a raw foodist for a while, and I healed myself in 18 months. So I went from being somebody who could really only move my body in a swimming pool. I used to go to aquafit classes when I could, and I swear to God, aquafit hadn't changed since the 1970s.
That's it.
And I would be in the pool, with like there was a lady who was in her 90s. I was the youngest person there. I would be crying with sadness because I was the youngest person there, but also with joy that I could raise my arms above my head and not feel pain in my shoulders, that I could bounce around and move and not feel pain everywhere. But yeah, it took me 18 months to heal myself. And what I learned was lifestyle matters. Lifestyle really matters. And the consultants couldn't believe it when they signed me off for that last time. But I had this juicing holiday and I took a friend, and that was a game changer week. And I made a commitment to myself when I left that week. It was in Turkey, this retreat place, that I was going to come back a year later and I was going to be well. So I went back the following year. I didn't go back to Turkey because the guy that owned that retreat, he opened a place in Portugal. And he wanted to do a documentary where he wanted people to come to his retreat free of charge, people who had conditions that affected their daily lives, and he wanted to film what happened if they just juiced for 28 days, a super juice me program. So I was sort of getting better and better, and I rang them up and I said, I'm not ill enough to be of any interest for you. Documentary, thank goodness, but I want what they are having. Can I come and pay for it and still do the 28 days? They said yes, of course. You don't have to do it when they're coming. So I went and I did 4 weeks there, and was completely clear of any inflammation by the time I came back. Lost a stack of weight. The weight just fell off me. And what I learned was I started to lose weight when I focused on health, not losing weight.
Yeah.
So that was some good learning, really. So when I got my health back, one of the things that had made me dreadfully sad when I wasn't well was how I had taken my body completely for granted and my flexibility for granted. And yoga had sort of been part of my life, in and out, in and out. It was the only form of exercise that I really liked. But I decided that I was going to train to be a yoga teacher so that I would never, ever take my flexibility for granted ever again. So I trained to be a yoga teacher in 2016. And then that sort of brought me to Ayurveda. I read this amazing book, which I'm going to hold up, called Body Thrive, by a lady called Kate Stillman. I had a little bit of a girly crush on Kate. I used to stalk her all over the internet, and she was doing a workshop in Berlin. And this workshop, it was not the sort of thing that I would ever have gone on. It was about sort of mapping out your future. It wasn't really my thing, but I just wanted to meet her. So I went to Berlin. And at the end of that sort of, I don't know, long weekend in Berlin with her, I decided that I was going to train with her to be able to coach other people on these habits. So in 2020, I was one of the things about this 2-year training program with Kate was that you had to set up an online coaching group. I had to set it up in May 2020, which was perfect timing for me because of the depths of COVID. I had to find a pilot group of 5 people. I managed to find 12. So I started my first group with 12 people. And I did that for about 3 years, I think. And loved that. So that was my main work. I was just doing that, and I was kind of, getting bits of other things, not a huge amount during COVID, coaching clients. I didn't do any sort of other stuff really. And then I didn't want to do it anymore. It was kind of taking up too much of my headspace. So I had a year where I didn't do any. But then a friend, I'd recommended the book to her, and she'd got a little book club going with people. Then she invited me to join her book club, and we now co-coach these habits that are in this Body Thrive book every Tuesday. It's called Rooted Tuesdays. And it's great. We just get a group of people together. We meet every Tuesday night, and we work through a habit a week and it keeps me on track. So I like doing the coaching.
Yeah.
It keeps me on track doing that as well. Yeah. So, and I just continue to do some nice coaching work, some leadership development stuff. So that's really what's brought me up to date. Apart from Thermomix, let me tell you about the Thermomix.
I don't think Ellie knows
I
what a
wanted to
Thermomix is.
ask. I don't.
A Thermomix, well, I said this to somebody 2 days ago and she laughed out loud. A Thermomix is not, well, it is a kitchen appliance, but it's
Okay.
more than a kitchen appliance. It's a lifestyle upgrade.
Right. Okay.
Don't tell
It's-
Connor about this, Ellie, else he'll have you buying it. I swear.
I know.
Yeah.
It is a kitchen appliance that does 20 different things. It can make bread, it can bake, it can make soups, it can chop things, it can steam things. It's got 20 different functions that it can do. And it's got a screen on the front of it. And it's got recipes in there it's from a platform called Cookie Do, which is Australian, I think. Only the Aussies could call something Cookie Do. And there's 100,000 recipes in this platform. So you've got an app for your phone, you choose what you want to make, you send it to your phone, so it's all there, and the machine guides you on how to make a recipe. The scale's in there, so it'll literally say, add 60 grams of cashew nuts, put the lid on, chop it 5 seconds at this speed, whatever it is you're making, and you can make literally anything. If you've got one of these appliances, I'm just looking at it, it's the most gorgeous machine. So I got my first machine a year ago, and I loved it. And the lady that sold it to me, called Sam, she contacted me in the January. She was doing her goals for the year, and she said, I'd like you, one of my goals is I'd like you to join my team. Have you ever thought about being a Thermomix advisor?
Dorothy, no, but I will.
I wasn't really sure, but the fact that she'd asked me anyway, I'd signed up to do the training day in March, and I'd got quite a lot of corporate work on. I'd got a couple of big projects on, and as soon as I'd said yes, I went into this state of, why have you done that? I was like lying in bed worrying about who would I invite to demos, because it's a bit like being a Tupperware lady.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it like Tupperware? Yeah. Well, what was that? What's that kitchen stuff? Pampered Chef.
Pamper Chef, yeah, it's like that, where you go into people's houses and you demo the Thermomix. Anyway, the Thermomix machine that I had is called a TM6, and in February, the company that make Thermomixes, they launched the next model, TM7. So they launch a new model probably every, I don't know, 6 years. They've had previous models. They've been going for about 50 years. And I just couldn't get my head around how I could, use a machine that I didn't have. So I didn't do it in March. I chickened out, but it was in the back of my head constantly, like, why didn't you do it? You would never know if you were going to be a success or not. So in September, she came back round again. Have you think about it? So I did think about it, and I did the training at the end of September. So I'm on what they call an earners program. It's another 90 days. I'm dipping my toe in, where if I sell 4 machines in 90 days, then I get my machine for free. If I don't sell any, I just pay for it. And I knew that I could pay for it at the beginning, so I didn't expect to sell any. As we speak, I've sold 3, so that's really amazing.
It is, yeah, well done.
And I'm only currently just doing the demos in my house, so I've been inviting people to my house. And I love it. It's absolutely brilliant.
Dorothy, when I see your social media, I think, Dorothy, you should have been on QVC.
Yeah.
Forget all this trainer and personnel stuff. Get yourself on QVC.
The videos are horrendous, but it doesn't matter, because the more you do, the better you get,
Well, we've been told we have to do, we're not told, that sounds terrible, it's our company, but that we are advised, so we've been told, I sound like a kid, that we should do more social media videos. And you feel like really false, don't you? Do you know, like you feel like you like, it's really false. And you say these things and you think, that's a load of crap. Like, and it makes, like, because it is, isn't it? It's just because you're talking to the air, aren't you? But
Exactly that. But it's like you've just got to practice. And I mean, even at the beginning, doing a reel or whatever, it's like, how do you do a reel, or how do you get photos to whiz in, and the transitions and all that? So I'm getting faster at doing the reels. I'm still not sure they're that good. My videos are not good, but I'll just continue to do them.
I
Um,
think like doing them is better than has. I say, I mean, me, who you
it's,
literally, it's like drawing blood from a stone to get me to do them. But the
but
fact
you're
that you're
amazing
doing
at
them is
them.
better than,
Yeah.
oh, I know, but it does absolutely drive me
There was two
mental.
things that I wanted to say to you, Dot. Sorry to before, and this is linked to. So I recently listened to Mel Robbins's "Let Them"
yeah,
audiobook because I've been
yeah,
sort of, and two things came out. One was about the social media, which was really interesting, which is about why don't you do them? What are you worried about? Do you know, like why aren't you doing them? What are you worried about? And hers was about she didn't want her friends to think she was like bragging about being a motivational speaker. But the other thing that you said earlier, that not to distract, was I was thinking about, I won't say who it was I was thinking about in case they're listening, about having to make friends. And it was really interesting that she talks about go first, which really interesting. Sorry, I'm going back to what you'd said, but she talks about it'll
Mm.
take you a year in a new place to make friends and to go first. And I think that's a little bit like you trying to get people to buy your Thermomix. You've got to go first. So that
yeah,
long rambling thing is about sometimes you've just got to go first.
yeah,
Thank you. Thank you
yeah,
very
yeah,
much. Which,
yeah.
and it makes
No,
you feel sick, doesn't it? Like, yeah, I was showing a friend, a mutual friend of ours, Ellie, Dorothy's new career. Like, and we were looking at your reels. It was like, look at this. Like, Dot's having a go and I think it's really brave. Where do you think
yeah.
it's going to
Yeah.
take you, the Thermomix stuff then, Dorothy? What's,
No, I don't know. My 90 days, my earners program is finishes on the 24th of December. And I genuinely, when I did this, I thought, do you know what? Even if you don't sell any, the only person that has to be comfortable with that is you. As long as you
Yeah.
don't
yeah,
feel like a failure, that's all that matters. So that I had a word with myself around that. And I just thought, but if I do this, because I was going to get a new machine really quickly, the latest model, and what it means that for 3 months I will become an expert in that machine, and
yeah,
because I'll immerse myself in it. But what I have found with this organisation is it's just fun, and they do all of the things that Karen we learned at ASDA. What gets rewarded gets repeated, so they only reward good behaviour. So what you find is you find yourself being sucked into, you're seeing people being recognized because they've made a sale, and then you want to, but then more importantly, because I love this machine and I know what a difference it can make to people's lives, I want them to have one because it
Mm.
makes cooking fun. It really makes cooking fun. You can plan what you're going to eat. There's a planner in there. You can send your recipes to a shopping list, so you can shop with your list for your recipes. You can even send that shopping list to an online shopping retailer. You can check.
Bloody hell.
It's amazing. So all your food meal planning, and there's constant inspiration because there's new recipes coming online, and you get to know what's in your food. I'm now making my own Greek yogurt, my own nut butters, my own tomato ketchup, my own tahini, my own quince paste, my own marmalade. I'm making all my own stuff. And I'm cooking meals, and all of the recipes on this cookie do platform have been triple tested in kitchens. So you know that if you decide you're going to make it, it's probably going to work out really nicely. So it gives you
Hmm.
confidence in the kitchen. I feel like I've come full circle. I want it to be, I love food, I love cooking, I want to be in hospitality, back to, I'm a glass once
Yeah.
at Fontins, I'm going to go into hotels. And I do think that I have become a teacher, where I started, I
yeah.
wanted to be a teacher. So you're an educator. And so if they are happy for me to stay beyond the 90 days, and I don't know whether I've got to make 4 sales, if I don't make the 4 sales, I can't stay. I don't think that's the case, but I think I'm going to stay because the other thing that's really interesting is the people that I've met who are Thermomix advisors are seriously impressive. The branch manager at the branch that I'm connected to, she's a former teacher, and she never thought she wanted to be anything else. She's a Polish lady, and she wanted years ago a Thermomix. She wanted it for free, so she did this earners program that I'm doing. And then she went part-time as a teacher because she loved it so much. And then she gave up altogether, was a team leader with Thermomix, and is now the branch manager. She's been there for 8 or 9 years. And I love the lady that recruited me. She's a brilliant woman. And I just love it. Yeah, I go to a branch meeting every Monday, get some inspiration. We cook something nice together. We have some sort of a training session. And it's helped me step into an identity, actually. You know, when I first said I was going to do it in March, I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
And that's also how I knew I didn't really want to do it, because I didn't
that's
tell
really interesting.
I felt ridiculous. And it was quite, when you take on a different role, it's like you are stepping into a different identity, because that's not how I see myself. I'm a Thermomix survivor, yeah.
Do you know what I think is so interesting about your whole story is you said at the very beginning that, like, from a really young age, like, you'd been at 7 different schools, you'd lived and this change has, like, bear with me, but like, your change has been consistent throughout your life, and it's so nice to see, because I think people, bit like you were saying maybe about Alan, sorry Alan, dragged you under the bus a couple of times this podcast. But okay, not Alan, me, like, I am very much like, I very comfortable in where I am, what I'm doing, and I do think that's fine as well. But I think when you hear about what your life has looked like and what your experiences have been, you have to be comfortable with change to get to say yes to that, really, don't you? And I think it's just, I just think it's really cool that you've, like, because you're so comfortable with it, what it's allowed you to do.
Yeah, I like change. I actually
like
think change equals growth. And in defense of my lovely husband.
Sorry. And it's me. You haven't said anything bad about me.
In defense of him, what I actually think is that because he is so stable, and I think he's been like my stability. I think that he's enabled me, because he's never stopped me doing anything. I mean, that Japan gig that I did, that was only 4 or 6 weeks at the time, but I was offered a 1-year assignment. He wasn't, and I wanted to do it. And he was happy for me to go to Japan. And the deal at the time was every 8 weeks you can have a holiday and you can meet somewhere in the world. You can either go back to the UK and see Alan, or you can meet somewhere else in the world, or he can come to Japan. And I kept going through this, it's only a year. Oh my God, it's a whole year. I mean, in the end, I talked myself out of it and I didn't do it. But he's never stopped me from doing anything.
Yeah.
So I think he's potentially provided that sort of stability for you to do more exciting things.
And I think it's really important, because Mike's very similar to Alan. You know, like, he's my husband. He's not really one for change and that sort of stuff, but he's never stopped me with any of the mad ideas I've had ever. Do you know, like, ever? Like, and I think it must be quite hard living with people like us. Because I think you're right, Ellie, change is great.
You do have that grounded person. Like, for you two, you're like, okay, well, I can do this and I can do what I want. And I've got someone to reel me back in when my ideas have taken off. Yeah.
But I before we finish, I would like to hear a little bit about, because I think it's like a really interesting thing when you're of a certain age, where people, particularly more for women, talk about retirement. Like, and people say to me, when are you giving up work? It's like, and I say, well, I'm not working. Like, do you know, like, I'm doing what I love. And we've heard it quite a few times on the podcast, haven't we, about this? You must be that age. When are you going to retire? And I loved what you said about, you're not ready for that. Would you just explain a little bit about that for us? Because I think it's so important, and it's not talked about enough.
Yeah, I think, a lot of my life, I've not felt old enough to do certain things. Like, why did I not have children? I never felt old enough to be a mum. couldn't look after myself, never mind somebody else. So I genuinely do not feel old enough.
No, neither do I.
So that's the first thing. I look in the mirror and I do see my mum now, and I kind of think, I'm 66. How the hell did that happen? I'm 66 and a half, actually. I'm going to be 67 in February. And you sort of think, how did that happen? But I genuinely don't, in my mind, feel old enough. I feel exceptionally lucky that I'm in a financial situation where I don't have to work full time. I don't know what I would do if I had nothing.
No,
Yeah.
nor me. That's what I think. No, I agree with you on that, because I think, well, if I wasn't doing this, what would I be doing? I'm not a
Yeah,
no,
you're not watching the
no,
you're not watching This Morning, are you?
no,
Like,
no.
not that there's again, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but if that
It's just
isn't
not
who
me.
you
It's just not
are,
Dorothy. Exactly. Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
It's just not, and I don't feel ready to retire. And I've still got energy. I'm not on any medications. I'm healthy. My body is reasonably flexible because I do the yoga, I'm continuing to learn. This year I've done 2 yin yoga teacher training courses. I'm like Karen, always have to have some sort of growth or development thing going on.
Yeah.
So it's sort of invest in myself every year. I invest
Yeah, yeah.
in some way, learning something new. Um, but I think it's not talked enough about,
No, I
actually, in terms of, because I've gone through phases with what am I going to do, and as because all of my corporate work has come through network, I've never developed the skills to do any marketing because it's always just landed in my
yeah,
lap. And even at times where I've thought I don't want to do that anymore, somebody that rings you up, they've got a situation, and you just get sucked in by the
yeah.
situation and you want to help. So it becomes very
We
interesting.
decided a couple of years ago to stop doing the corporate stuff because it is quite exhausting and time consuming, and sometimes you work whilst you work for people you really like, sometimes you don't work with people that really want to be there, or like it's hard work, isn't it? And then I'm the same. Like if somebody I like somebody I like says, will you do, like yesterday I was in Hull, like somebody I like, I'll do it. But it is really interesting what you've said about how when you start doing other stuff and it's not about networks, it's not about referrals, and you've got to go into social media. It is like starting a new job, like that whole trying to learn about being on social media. So you are constantly expanding your brain. That's a very bad way of saying it, but keeping your brain healthy.
Yeah, and I think that's super important, isn't it?
Yeah, I do.
It's kind of like use it or lose it, really. So I think for me, it was just deciding what's going to make me happy. And I quite like with this Thermomix thing that it's a 90-day thing. I can dip my toe in, and at the end of it, I can walk away if I want to. But
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
surprising thing is, I don't think I do want to walk away because I've met some amazing people. And even though we're all independent, we're all self-employed, we've got this attachment to a brand. We're learning from each other and we help each other. So it's like being part of a team again.
yeah.
So I think, and I do think, do you think that are older people actually younger these days? If I think about my
I
grandmother
think
when
so.
she was in her 60s, I do remember an old lady. I don't
Yeah.
feel in any way, shape, or form old. So I'm
I don't
just
I
not
think
ready.
I know I'm not. Like clearly I'm not as old as you guys, but I think obviously when you're younger, you think that 60-year-olds are like, but that's
Decrepit.
because you're young. Do you know what I mean? And you really are like. But now, it to me, I just think it's no age. It's no age whatsoever, and because I bear with me here. I think in your head sometimes you go, "Oh yeah, well they're in their 60s, probably winding down," and then you're like, "Hang on, I know people in their
Yeah.
60s, like they're not old," and
Yeah.
I do think it's like I think it's you're not as old as we used to think 60 was. Do
I
you know what I mean? It's
I
not.
think
It's
as
no
well.
age.
I think it's really important for me here as well that being 60 is younger, it's not looking younger. And I think that's part of the challenge we've got in this society, that a lot of women and men want to look younger and have all these like procedures and things like that.
Yeah.
That for me is not being happy with where you are at your age. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? It's like so quite a few people at 60 are wanting to look 30. Whereas I think the difference is being 60 and being content with your life and not just, does that make sense? I think there's two things going on in this world about youth and age that are significantly different, because if you're searching to like have facelifts and, you know, like the things like that, that to me is that you're not content with the age you are. Whereas I think I'm content with the age I am because I've got more freedom. I do think Dorothy's had a very, very significant point. I think if you've got financial, I'm going to call it security, it's a lot easier to do what you want to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, completely. And, you know, there have been times over the last, I don't know, 3-4 years where I've thought, you know, do you want to go back to work? And then you sort of think, I'm not sure I would get a job because, you know, it's like we are an aging population. And because I've been on the other side of the fence, when you recruit new people in, you're looking for potential and you want them to have you know, what's the next job? What's the next job? So you're looking for people that have got more. So I've never really been brave enough to put myself back out there and apply for jobs. But I have thought about it, but I don't want to work full time. I'm very clear on that. I don't want to work full time. I don't mind working every day, just as long as it's not all day. I really enjoy the corporate work that I get, the people that I get to interact with, the people I coach. I love the health stuff. I love teaching yoga. I teach in my kitchen. I don't teach in a village hall anymore. I've just got a very small group of women on a Friday morning. They come and we do yoga for 75 minutes together. And it's just, you know, a way of connecting with different people and helping people who are older than me to, you know, feel good in their body. I feel very good in my body. I feel really healthy. I feel like I've got all the energy that I need to do everything. And I absolutely put it down to, I'm going to hold it up. If you've not read this book.
I've read it. I think reading it is a different, so what do I think? I've read it a few years ago. I think the challenge with it is you definitely need somebody to help you think about how it is for you. Does that make sense? It's another book that you could read about stuff that has some really good principles in. And I think I always have like having done a couple of adventures with Dorothy at juicing and raw food shenanigan places.
And boot camps for people who don't do boot camps.
Me and Dorothy snuck off, didn't we? We couldn't be doing with the boot camp, so we snuck off and left them be. But what it taught me was, which I think is what Women of Our Time is about, is it's not accessible and it's not affordable to all people. And I think that's what we can do with things like that you do. It's not accessible, it's not affordable to every woman, and that's not fair, I don't think. So I think we have a challenge to not, I don't mean this that we're privileged, but that it's not just a privilege thing, you know. And I think that's our responsibility as women of our age to do that, else it just becomes something for the few, not the many. Does that make sense?
Yes, I agree. And I think these habits that are in here, these ancient 6,000-year-old Ayurvedic habits, they are just your grandmother's wisdom. They're what your granny would tell you to do. But they are all, and they're all free, by the way, they're all free. They're all counter-cultural. So the first habit, for example, is earlier, lighter dinner. And we are not a culture to have an earlier, lighter dinner. We're a culture to have a late, heavy dinner as a reward for probably a pretty crap and stressful day. You know, the second habit is early to bed. We're not cultured to go to bed. We're cultured to stay up and watch the next episode of Netflix. And Netflix has openly said that their biggest competitor is sleep.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me because
every single habit in here is counter-cultural, and it can be very hard to change your habits.
100%.
So we bring a group together where these things, these habits that we do, and we just work on a habit a week, and then we go round them again, and then we go round them again, and you're always starting from a different place.
And I also think that like part of what we want to help people with is it's not a rule, that it's guidance. So actually, if just once a week you have your dinner earlier, and once a week. So sometimes it's like showing people that's not, because we've also got a mindset in this because of the education system where it's like, oh, I can't go to, I'm not going to do it because I can't go to bed every night early. Like, oh, I'm not going to do it because I can't have a light dinner. So I think you're
Yeah.
also dealing with not just the culture, but the mindset that it's created. And I think that's why I think what you do is really lovely, and it'd be really lovely to when we do some work next year with our membership to try and incorporate that so that people can see, well, I can do 20%, I don't have to do 100%. You know, like I don't have to go and buy a Thermomix, but if I just cut processed food out one day a week, or, and I think that's what I think you have a massive skill with, that translation into the practicality and the, you know, affordability and that. Yeah.
And making it land, yeah, I forgot what I was going to say there. Yeah, and making it accessible. One of the things that I'm now doing differently with this online coaching group to when I was trained with Kate. So Kate's way of coaching me was, even when I set up my pilot group, she told me I wasn't charging enough money. And the idea was that this is a VIP, high ticket price, 1 year transformational program that you can't actually put a price on health, can you? I could get that, but I didn't want to charge a big ticket price. And I did start with each round I was recruiting new people, I was putting the price up. But now we charge what it would cost to go to a yoga class.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome.
That's what we do. And I have conversations in that group that I don't have anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's really, really helpful.
I think you've got to.
I think that feels less overwhelming as well. Like, to me, am I going to commit to something that's going to cost me an arm and an arm and a leg? I don't really know what the outcome looks like to me. Or am I going to go, well, I'd spend a tenner going to yoga. Do you know what I mean? Spend 20 quid going to yoga. Like, that feels less intimidating as well.
Yeah, totally.
We're gonna, when your podcast comes out, we've probably launched the membership, hopefully. And we debated on charging, not charging, what to charge, and in the end we've done exactly the same thing, which is you've got to charge something because people need to value it, but it's only going to be probably £20 for the year. And because actually if you say it's a tea, we were looking at tiers and all that stuff, what you're doing is it's not inclusive. And to Ellie's point, nobody's going to bother. And I think it's a really important thing we have to do in this world to change like commerciality and to change what's accessible, because we are outpricing people from some like really amazing tools like coaching, like what you do, like, like leadership development, like membership stuff. It's outpriced because we've all got too commercial with it. And
I agree. And how can you help people to have habits that really don't cost anything and that are going to be good for them? And I think I also feel really lucky. You kind of, I started off earlier by saying, I look in the mirror and I think, how the hell am I 66? I'm married to a 71-year-old husband. It's like, what? But I also have a mindset of, aren't we privileged to be here? And you two are better than anybody. Not everybody gets to be this age.
No, that's my little mantra every day is don't waste it. And that doesn't mean that every day you have to do something. That's not that, because I am privileged to be here. That's my little mantra.
Yeah. I actually was lucky enough to spend an hour with the founder of Drew Yoga, which is the style of yoga that I teach. It's a very accessible style of yoga that anyone can do, even people in a wheelchair. That's what I love about it. But he spent time with me I just turned 60 actually. So how old was I? I can't remember how old I was, but a few years ago, he spent time with me and talked about really thinking about what are you going to do in your 60s, because it could prove to be the most productive time in your life if you
100%,
decide that you're going to do some good things, and that's why I continue, with the health coaching and all that kind of stuff. And the stuff that Karen and I were so privileged to learn at ASDA, I have dined out on that stuff ever since.
And me.
In my consulting business. And even today, there are companies who want to know what ASDA did in the 90s, and it's still relevant because it was I feel so lucky that we were there.
It was amazing,
That's what I was thinking about earlier when you said, I know, and we will wrap up in a minute, I
Yeah.
promise. But when you said about, like, did you want to go back to work? And I do think, like, yeah, okay, I understand where companies come from, but then you've got these people who have got like a wealth of experience and knowledge, and that what goes out the window because they
your age.
turned 60.
Yeah. It's terrible.
I don't know whether I create, whether it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because I didn't even try. But I think there were so many people who would like to work. I meet some women every morning. We on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays we meet on Zoom and we do yoga together. I just put a YouTube clip on. We have a cuppa together, and I think you just get the impression that if it was more available to us, but I don't think that employers are ready yet.
They don't value that. They don't value it. They're going by age, not wisdom. Yeah. And I also think, I'm not being funny, it's the whole, not for now, but for another podcast, it's the whole bit about why they don't really and truthfully believe in flexible working. Because I'm the same as you. I would not want to do a full-time job. So the whole ethos of flexible working for anybody at any age is not really valued by organisations. And I think that they're missing a whole lot of wisdom. This could be a song, that whole lot of wisdom.
They bring us in on a consultancy basis, because I've also had this thought about, at some point these people are going to think, Dorothy, you're way too old. What can you possibly bring to the modern challenges of work today? But honestly,
I do think we have to stop in a minute, but I'm like that. I keep thinking, why do people keep, like, we did some work with a company a year ago. We did quite a lot of work. And honestly, I felt so irrelevant because they were all young. And for the first time I thought, am I really the right person to be doing this when you're all, and that's just my thoughts. And I think that we have a very interesting culture in this country, Western countries, cultures.
You are the right person. You are.
Yeah, but you think, well, am I relevant? And that's not. It's just interesting, isn't it, about how we take ourselves out of the game.
Yeah.
But anyway, speaking about songs, I think Ellie's got a question for you.
Yeah, no, I do. I do. And thank you for this. It's been great. So, last and final question is, if you had to pick a song to be a theme song for your life, what song would it be?
So the song that I've chosen, and thanks for giving me advance notice of this because I've been able to think about it, is Ain't No Stopping Us Now by McFadden and Whitehead. Do you know that?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Excuse me.
This song, the reason that I've chosen this is that this song came out in 1979, and I met Alan in November 1978. So that following year was the year where you were falling in love, and it was a song that we used to dance to. We used to go to nightclubs 3 or 4 times a week at that time. So I think it's got the kind of the energy of the sort of possibility and starting out together. I think everything that we did at Asda was about ain't no stopping us now. We were just going to continuous improvement, that culture. And actually, Vicky and I did a massive leadership development program, a culture change program for a big retailer. And I wanted to include a dance, which I choreographed, and it was too Ain't No Stopping Us Now by McFadden at Whitehead. And in health and well-being, this whole Body Thrive, this is about, longevity, health, disease prevention. Ain't no stopping us now, like keep going. So I think, that is my song, my life. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
And I think amazing. You should do your dance on your Thermomix socials.
Yeah, you should. Yeah. If you need an idea for a reel.
If anybody wants to be a Thermomix advisor, give me a shout because I can tell you all about it. If I recruit a Thermomix advisor, it's the same as making a sale.
Ooh.
How about that?
We'll put all of you where to find you, where those sorts of things. Brilliant. We'll put all that down below for people to find. And thank you so much for taking the time out to come and talk to us.
To see you both.
It's been great.
Brenda, it will be fun, and it has been.
Oh,
Oh god, she was. I really liked Brenda, so yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dorothy, and thank you everyone for listening. We
thank
will
you.
see you next time. Bye.
Bye.